Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Him and I. Happy holidays. I hope you guys had an amazing holiday with your family. It is just me today. So, if you guys saw my last week's episode, it was for my Spanish speaking crowd, but I did an episode for mental health, and I decided to duplicate that episode in English instead of coming up with a new topic because I think that it is equally as important. And I really wanted both audiences to just get that story. I think that mental health it can be such a controversial topic, Christians or not Christians, and I think that it is something that should be talked about, something that, shouldn't be hidden away. And I just thought that it would be really important to share a little bit of my story, a little bit of my thoughts on it. And my goal, my prayer is that, anybody that may be struggling with mental health silently, or anybody that may not know if they, qualify to be validated for that, or anybody who has gone through that. And, especially like as a Christian, some of us can feel like maybe it's like a sin, to need help, or maybe it's a sin to go to therapy, or maybe it's wrong to need medication. All of those things, I just want to cover them and talk to you guys about them today because it's not wrong to need a little bit of help. It's not a sin to, seek a little bit of guidance. And I believe that God places people in our life and uses people, professionals, etc. Just the same way, in hospitals with doctors. I think that it's all the same thing. So if you guys want to stick around a little bit to hang out with me, get to know me a little bit better, and I would just love to be able to just share this onto you guys, and hopefully we can just continue to grow together. To begin, obviously usually I start my videos kind of like conversating and having fun, but it's just me today, which I'm not used to because like I love to just like have everybody here having a good time. But I guess to begin, so if you guys don't already know this, I'm 17. I'm a senior in high school. And I think that my real, battle and journey with mental health kind of started when I was 16 years old, which was really not that long ago because I don't turn 18 for another 4-5 months. So, it was pretty recent, and I don't, stand around talking about it because, I'm proud of it or whatever, but I'm proud of what God pulled me out of. I think that especially as a girl whose whole platform is surrounded by being in love with Jesus and surrounded by the fact that, I love Jesus and I want to make him known. I think it's so important to talk about it rather than hide from it or be embarrassed, because I would love to just express, what he pulled me out of, who pulled me out of that pit, and that is just the reason that I want to come forward and maybe inspire one person or two people to come forward about their story, or maybe, inspire somebody to receive help if they really need it. When I turned 16, and this is like not even an exaggeration, like literally the second I turned 16, like everything just started going all over the place. And I remember I was so excited to turn 16 because, like in movies and books and like literally everything, like 16 is like the prime age, like, like sweet 16. And I was just like so excited. But I honestly, like 15 was my prime. That was like my sweet 16 era. But when I turned 16, the enemy just began to attack me from so many different angles. And I describe it as that as well, because even though I validate mental health is real, mental health is there, I genuinely believe that spiritual warfare and the enemy attacking your calling has so much to do with it. And since, obviously this video is for everyone and anyone who may be struggling with mental health, but mainly directed at my Christian girls and boys who may be feeling, like they can't talk about it. I'm here to validate that and see you, and I resonate with you. The enemy is never going to leave you alone, especially when you're chasing after your ministry as hard as possible. So I definitely think that a lot of what I went through when I was 16 had to do with it. And I always really highlight 16 years old, highlight my junior year, because that was like the hardest year of my life. Like, I can't even believe that the Eliana that I'm seeing right now, there are 5 days left until 2025. And I can't even like recognize myself from, me in January. I was wearing some pajama pants the other day, and my mom was like, oh, why don't you wear these? Because I was making a video with my friend. We were doing pajamas. And I was like, Mommy, like, I can't. Like, those don't fit me. But I put them on and they did. But I remember when I got them exactly a year ago, I was just so skinny and so sad and so, like, I don't want to use the word malnourished, but I was just like, when I was just at a point where, I didn't want to eat, like, nevertheless want to eat, but I didn't even want to be alive. So, like, that little thing, like my pajama pants fitting me perfectly without having to roll them 4 times or without having to tie them, it was so like emotional for me, because there's just so many little things. Like, I don't have to, think about eating. I just eat because I'm hungry. I don't have to, I don't count down the seconds till the day is over. Like, obviously I have my moments of sadness because I'm a human being, but the position that I'm in now is like, I love my life. I have moments of sadness because I'm a human, but it's not the same as hating your existence, you know? Something that I always bring up, I brought this up in my video on Instagram, I brought this up last week. I used to tell my mom this specific phrase, and I think that it was like alarming to her because you don't really say this. I remember I used to tell her like, "Oh, mom, like I wish like God would come. I wish God would like come get us, or I wish the rapture would happen, etc." And like that was just like kind of weird because I understand that like as Christians, like we are all waiting and we are all so excited for his coming, but you don't really like go around saying that all the time. But in other words, like I was really trying to tell her that I just didn't want to be alive anymore because I didn't. Now, when it comes to like the suicide aspect, I never, attempted. I never thought about attempting because of my knowledge as a Christian, because there's some people that really do believe that's the way out. And I knew it wasn't, but I genuinely felt like 10 times more trapped, even with that knowledge that that isn't the way out. I felt 10 times more trapped because I was like, I can't and won't do that. But that's low key what I wish. You know what I mean? So it was genuinely like I was just like trapped in a box. Like I was like unhappy being alive, but there was no way that I was going to go and attempt that. But even if you are, feeling that way, those feelings are still valid. And I'm again not saying that, that makes you like a bad person or anything of the sort. But even having, a firm life with Christ, I was still going through these things. And that's another thing that, brings me back to the spiritual warfare aspect of it. We can be firm with Christ, reading our Bibles, listening to worship music, walking alongside our ministry, and we can still be struggling with these things, and some people might not even know. I think the biggest thing was like for me, especially like as a worship leader at church, like to deal with something like this and still have to go onto an altar every Sunday and just like put those things aside and lead a congregation into worship, that is just like, it's so much for a person, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to like clarify that, sometimes people might be embarrassed to talk about seasons like this in their life. I at first didn't want to, but I know that God really wants me to. It's not my identity. I can talk about the depression that I went through, the moments of anxiety that I had, and I can speak about it proudly because it's not my identity. It is not who I am. You know what I mean? I think that people start to think that, once they admit that they went through something or once they admit that they needed help, it becomes their identity, but that's not true. I think that when I admitted that I needed a little bit of help, when I went out of my way to say to Jesus and to my mother and to family and to friends, like, hey, like, this is what's happening to me, it didn't become my identity. It stopped being my identity because I decided to take that step. I decided to take that step and say, this is not going to be me. This is not who I am. This is not going to haunt me. And I just like really wanted to like place that you don't have to leave and go crazy and go into the world to go through things in your own mind. You don't have to stop having a firm life with Christ to be going through things. And I feel like that's rarely talked about. Every time somebody talks about a testimony, and God bless those people, and those testimonies are so fulfilling, and I love when things like that happen, but you rarely hear about somebody struggling still in the church. And I think another thing is that, with depression and anxiety and other mental illnesses, people tend to just, kind of brush them off and be not very validating towards people who are going through those things. And it's usually just pray, or, you have God. You shouldn't feel like that. That's selfish of you. You have God. Rebuke it. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true or valid, because they are. You can pray, you do have God, and you can and you will rebuke it. But what I'm saying is, when somebody is trying to confide in you about something that they are going through mentally, and you continue to just invalidate those feelings by, just throwing the word Jesus at them instead of actually sharing Jesus with them, instead of representing his fruits, instead of actually helping, it's just invalidating, and it can honestly be defeating for the person, because they might think, you know what, I know that and it still means nothing to me. This person isn't going to help me, so how can I possibly help myself? How can I possibly open my heart for Jesus to help me? You can and you will rebuke generational curses from your life, the spirit of depression, anxiety. I pray and I declare that anybody who's watching this video and going through anything of the sort, those chains will be broken in the mighty name of Jesus. But it is not something that, that's just not the way that you talk to people, And I am here to validate the fact that we go through it. I'm going to say we, if it makes anybody feel better. Like, I have a therapist. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. She has helped me through so much, and she loves Jesus just as much as I do. And that's not a sin. It's not a problem to get a little bit of help. have somebody to talk to, have somebody who's, a little more professionally experienced with emotions to walk you through them. Um, who, another thing is that, like, instead of, if there's anybody, because like I said, I had those thoughts where I didn't want to be alive, but I never really took those steps. But I always say this phrase, I've said it multiple times on this channel: instead of taking your life, like, consider giving it to somebody who wants it. Instead of taking your life, give it to somebody who wants it, who died for it, who was beaten, humiliated, persecuted, nailed to a cross with your name in his mind. He died for you. So please, please do not take what he created. And he has so many plans and so many purposes for you to go out of your way to take that away. And I'm not calling you selfish, because that's another thing. People love to call suicidal people selfish, and that is the last thing that you are. You are not selfish. You're just hurt. You're just having a little bit of a hard time, and that's okay. It's okay to feel that way, but what's not okay is to give up. Something that really, really helped me go through, because I think about, like, the dark place that I really was in. Like, I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do my passions. Nothing was fun. Nothing was funny. And that's coming from me, who thinks everything is a joke and I'm always having a good time. I just was different. People would be like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I remember I would just tell my mom, like, I'm tired, and not tired like I want to take a nap, tired like I'm just tired, like I'm done. And when I was 16, and genuinely, like, but mainly when I was 16, things were just attacking me from every angle. It was like school, family, friends. It was all over the place that I was just feeling attacked. And that's another thing. Like, when you just start to go through things, like, you get tired. So, it's okay to take a break, and it's okay to look yourself in the mirror and be like, I deserve a break. I deserve a little bit of help. I deserve to be validated for the way that I'm feeling, because Jesus does validate those things. And I think that the real key is, like, the Bible. I brought my Bible today because when I was going through, what I was going through, this was, like, the key. Like, even in the darkest place, like, I could read this, and even if I didn't necessarily, get better right away, it was just, like, something inside of me that changed. And it's like, you guys know that Maverick City song, For Your Good. When I should have lost my mind, you showed up right on time. When I should have lost my mind, the Bible showed up right on time. And I wanted to share a few things that really helped me through that process, and it can hopefully, and I just pray that it can help anybody who may be needing them. So when the enemy attacked me with people, because the enemy loved to attack me with people, that's, the enemy, he's not stronger, he's not better, and he's definitely not gonna defeat you, because hello, if God is for me, who can be against me? But he does know, the things that bother you. He does know how to get to you. And that's why we have to build ourselves up. And that's why we have to clothe ourselves with, the armor of God. And that's why we have to learn how to fight with the right weapons. The enemy used to attack me with people, because I'm such a people person. Like, I love so hard. Like, literally, if I click with somebody, that's like, we're best friends. Like, literally. And, especially as a teenager, our emotions are all over the place. We're finding our identity. High school is such a hard time. Ages 14 to 18. I mean, that's like a kid to a young adult. That's like a huge process. So on top of all of these emotions and hormones, it's already such a complicated time, because we're literally, like, we're just finding out who we want to be, who we are. And so when the enemy would attack me with people, friends, anything, platonic, romantic, family, anything of the sort, Jeremiah 15:21, and to this day, no matter where I'm going, no matter what I am doing, Jeremiah 15:21 is drilled in my mind. And they will fight against you, but they will not overcome you. For I am with you to guard you and to deliver you, says the Lord. And I will rescue you from the hand of the wicked, and I will redeem you from the hands of the strong. This is so powerful to me. And I remember the first time that the Lord gifted me with, what this verse means to me. It was literally like 20 minutes before something blew up in my face. The enemy really, really, really just found a way to get at me through somebody else. And it was just over and over in my head. And they will fight against you, but they will not overcome you. For I am with you to guard you and to deliver you. They will come against you, especially if you are walking by alongside your ministry. The enemy is not just going to sit down. If anything, that's going to wake him up. The enemy leaves people alone who aren't, doing anything. But if he sees you, walking towards your calling, and especially, the enemy is terrified of you, especially when you're doing what you have to do. He's scared. And so, they will fight against you, but they will not overcome you. It's just so special to me, and I repeat it over and over again because that doesn't necessarily have to mean people. That could mean anything. You know, your depression will fight against you, but it will not overcome you. Your anxiety will fight against you, but it will not overcome you. You know, all these mental illnesses will fight against you, but they will not overcome you. For the Lord is with you to guard you and to deliver you. And when the enemy would attack me with people, that was just a verse that was so special to me. When the enemy would attack my mind, which was probably the biggest one, because depression is something that, eats you from the inside out. It's not something that, just a physical thing that, you can just take some. It's really something that is in your mind. And I think that's where the enemy wanted to attack me the most when I was 16. It was always running. I was a huge overthinker. I used to be a really big people pleaser. I used to actually, be like, well, Jesus is so forgiving, so I have to be forgiving. And it would be really bad. Like, it would be like not the forgiving we're talking about. When we say forgiveness, it is important and it is so necessary to forgive, but that doesn't mean let people walk over you. That doesn't mean don't have boundaries with specific situations, relationships. That's not what that means. And I feel like it's so important, especially as a teenager, to know that boundaries and saying no and, understanding when a specific person is just not meant to be in your life anymore in a kind way, in a wise way. It's okay to make those decisions. And when the enemy would attack my mind, because the main thing the enemy would try to tell me is that I was by myself. I could be in a room full of people and the enemy would literally convince me that I was by myself. All I would constantly tell my mom is, I don't have any friends. I don't have this. I always felt alone. And it was really not true. I wasn't alone. Now, I was in a way, but I really wasn't alone. You know what I mean? Even like if you are physically alone, you are never, ever alone. And that's what this verse was so helpful for me too. Romans 12:2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that will of God, but which is good and acceptable and perfect. This really touched me because obviously this can be, perceived in whatever way, but and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. When I read, do not be conformed to this world is going to talk to you a little bit just like I'm talking to you right now. It's going to sound the same. It's going to sound similar. This world is going to validate your mental health. This world is going to tell you that it's okay to be sad. This world is going to tell you a lot of the things that I'm telling you now, but you know what the world is also going to tell you that I'm not going to tell you, that this is your identity. The world is going to try to convince you that it's a chemical imbalance, that you were born this way and that you can't change and that this is the way that you are and that you have to learn to live with it. That's not true. I am here to validate the fact that it is there. I'm here to validate that you feel this way. I think it's real. I believe that it's there. There's no shame in therapy. There's no shame in medication. But I am not going to sit here and tell you that that is your identity and that you are going to stay that way, because you're not. You will not conform to the ways of this world, but instead, you will be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and the things that you struggled with in the past, you will never struggle with again, but instead, they will be something that will make your testimony be 10 times more powerful, and you will help so many more people. I think that, it can be tricky because when Christians don't feel, especially Christian teenagers don't feel that they have the support of the church or their parents because of the fact that, Christians can't have mental health issues or they can't go to therapy or just pray, those kinds of things, they run to the world, and the world is going to validate it, but the world is also going to tell you that there's no chance for redemption. When the enemy wanted to attack my ministry, which was huge, the enemy just hates me because who wouldn't? What enemy wouldn't hate, you doing the opposite of what he wants? The enemy would attack me a lot with my mind, but he would also, convince me that I wasn't good enough to sing on an altar, that I wasn't clean enough, that I wasn't pure enough, that I wasn't, I didn't know enough, that I wasn't ready, that, so many different things. Every Sunday was a different thing. He would love to just find ways to attack me right before I was going to sing on the altar, after the altar. And I think those were the biggest things when I would receive attacks on the altar in the middle of singing with a microphone in my hand. I would just be like, seriously, like maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this is not what I'm meant to do. Maybe God, I used to say to God, this is something that I would never say again, and it was just something, but I used to tell God, I think you chose the wrong person for this. I don't think that I should be doing this. And I could feel, God wrap his arms around me and tell me just you're wrong. You're wrong. God doesn't make any mistakes, guys. And it's pretty a big deal for you to go to God and tell him that he made a mistake, because hello. But when the enemy attacked my mind, this Psalms right here, and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like, because I don't even know. Yeah. I used to have such little energy to do anything, let alone read, let alone pray. So I used to have like little coloring dates with Jesus. And now, every now and then I still do them, to remember what he used to do with me when I needed him the most. He used to just sit with me, and I used to just highlight and read and kind of illustrate, what this made me feel. And the illustration that I have here is just two people, and there's a little heart in the middle of it, and it's representing Psalms 118:6. And it says, by your side when you're all alone. That's what I wrote. But pretty much the whole Psalms 118. I'm just going to read various parts of it. But I called to the Lord in distress. The Lord answered me and put me in a spacious place. The Lord is for me. I will not be afraid. What can a mere mortal do to me? The Lord is my helper. Therefore, I will look in triumph on those who hate me. And if you go down to verse 12, they pushed me hard to make me fall, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. That verse changed my life. I think I've written like 2 songs on that verse. That verse is so important to me. And I know that, there's so many different interpretations of all these verses in the Bible, but the Lord is my strength and my song was so big to me because my ministry is music. My ministry is singing. So when I realized that I don't really have to do anything but love him and follow him, when I get on that altar, the second that microphone goes in my hand, it's not me anymore. I am simply a vessel for his glory. The Lord is my strength and my song. It's not Eliana's voice. It's not Eliana's talking. It's God, using me as a vessel. I'm his. And so when I would read, they pushed me hard to make me fall, but the Lord helped me. And that doesn't necessarily have to be people. It can be, because I would definitely use it in that way, but they could be your mind. They could be, the different things that are coming at you from, left and right, financial situations, relationships, etc. And that was just like such a helpful verse for me in that time. It was just so difficult. When the enemy wanted to convince me that I was going to stay in that place, because he loves doing that. The enemy loves to, make us think that we're going to stay somewhere. He loves to, remind us of our past, and then etc. When the enemy wants to remind you of your past, reminds him of his future. That is like such a big thing that a lot of us, can say, because when the enemy wanted to convince me that I was going to stay in that place, Psalms 23:4, we all know Psalms 23, but even though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Do not fear. Do not let it overcome me. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Do not fear. Do not let it overcome me. If you are in a situation, get up out of your bed, wash your face, brush your teeth, dance around in your room if you have to. I used to put on my beats, and girl, my mom used to walk in and be like, what is going on right now? And she still does to this day, because whatever you have to do to not only reconnect with Jesus, but to reconnect with yourself, do it. If there's certain people that, I realized that my friends and, that a specific person, and just they were becoming my identity. I had to take months to just separate myself from social media, from certain people, from certain things that were becoming idols in my life. And I had to tell Jesus, like, please help me find my identity in you. Help me find who I am without the Instagram and the TikTok, and without this boy, and without these friends, and without the validation of this person, and without the validation, that I feel. It's find who you are without all of those things, Find a way to reconnect with yourself. Find yourself again, and that is where your journey to overcoming these things comes. When the enemy wanted to convince me that I was alone, because I was saying before, the enemy loved to attack my mind, and the main thing that he would try to tell me is that I was by myself, and that for somebody who's loves love and loves being around people and loves laughing, and my love language is physical touch, for somebody like that to constantly be hearing you're alone, you're by yourself, nobody would care if you weren't here anymore. If you were gone, you would be so easy to replace. For somebody who was constantly hearing that, Deuteronomy 31:6 says, be courageous and firm. Do not be afraid or terrified when you face them, for the Lord your God is with you and will not fail you nor forsake you. The Lord your God is with you and will not fail you or forsake you. God is never going to leave you alone, even if you are physically alone, because I wasn't. The enemy just had me convinced I was. But even if you are alone, I promise you're not. You do not need friends. You do not need family. You do not need a significant other. You do not need validation from social media. You do not need validation from a scale. You do not need validation from your mirror. You do not need validation from makeup. What you need is validation from Jesus. And once you have that, you have everything. Everything. And I think that was like that was like a wake-up call for me. I genuinely could not understand how I was living. And I still look back and I really was living for the validation of absolutely everything else. The enemy wanted to convince me that I was by myself. And when I realized that he will not fail me or forsake me, why would I want to chase anything else? It's like chasing the wind. It's like chasing something that's never going to happen for you. Instead, I could chase somebody who's always there, who's always at the table waiting, who is never interested in going away. With anything, that I can go so far and he will be in the exact same place. He will never leave you or forsake you. And that was just, a little bit that I wanted to share with you guys. I would love to, in the future be able to do an episode where I am 10 times more in detail about my story, when the Lord grants me with more wisdom, more experience. Because as you guys, I was saying, like, it's only been less than a year that, I healed and recovered and was set free and delivered from this. But I just wanted to share a little bit with you guys because God really put it on my heart. And I just wanted to, reach out and just pray over anybody who may be going through anything mental health. You're validated. Even if you feel like you have to question it and you don't feel like you fit in the little mental health bubble, if you feel like you're having a hard time, I just rebuke that from your life. I do. I rebuke it, and everything is going to be okay, all in due time. I'm going to link some songs down below that really helped me through the process. And if you guys want to take a listen to them, different variations of Elevation Worship, Maverick City, lots of different SEU worship, or is it SEU worship? And yeah, so thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and for listening to a little bit of my story. It was so important for me to share it with you guys. Don't forget to follow my social medias. I have them below. There's just like little bits of this throughout the week. We have TikToks, photos, lots of fun stuff, and worship videos on Fridays. I've been doing like some different stuff. I did some vlog. I did a Christmas haul. I'm going to be doing another special vlog that's going to come out this week. So you guys are going to be, I'm not going to say it because it's a surprise. But I also did like a special cover with my friend Anthony. So lots of special things that are happening. I love you guys so much. I'm always here for each and every single one of you. And I will see you guys next week.